Chapter 13. In Secret. France. Some days later, the road to Paris, a guardhouse, and La Force prison in Paris. The traveller going towards Paris from England in the autumn of the year 1790. Two progressed slowly. Every town gate and village had its band of citizen patriots, with their guns ready to fire at a moment's notice. They stopped all corners and goers, cross-questioned them, inspected their papers, looked for their names in lists of their own, turned them back or sent them on, or stopped them and held them, as they wished or as they thought best for the dawning republic. Charles Darnay soon realized that there was no hope for him of return along these country roads until he had been declared a good citizen of Paris. Whatever might happen to him now, he must go on to his journey's end. Not a poor village closed upon him, not a barrier dropped across the road behind him, but he knew it to be another iron door among the many that barred his way back to England. At every stage of his journey he was watched and stopped 20 times. His progress was delayed 20 times by them, riding after him and taking him back, riding ahead of him and stopping him, riding with him and keeping him in their charge. He had been days on his journey in France alone, when he went to bed tired out in a little town on the high road, still a long way from Paris. Nothing but Gabelle's letter from his prison at the Abbaye would have got him so far. His difficulty at the guardhouse in this small place had been such that he felt his journey to have come to a crisis, and he was therefore as little surprised as a man could be to find himself awakened in the middle of the night. He was awakened by a local official and 3 armed patriots in rough red caps with pipes in their mouths, who sat down on the bed. "Emigrant," said the official, "I am going to send you on to Paris under an escort." "Citizen, I wish nothing more than to get to Paris, though I could do without the escort." "Silence," growled a red cap, striking at the bedclothes with the end of his gun. "Peace, aristocrat. It's as the good patriot says," observed the official. "You are an aristocrat and must have an escort and must pay for it." "I have no choice," said Charles Darnay. "You have no choice," observed the official. "Get up and get dressed, emigrant." Darnay obeyed and was taken back to the guardhouse, where other patriots in rough red caps were smoking, drinking, and sleeping by a watchfire. Here he paid a heavy price for his escort, and from there he started on the wet roads at 3 o'clock in the morning. The escort was 2 red-cap patriots on horseback, armed with guns and swords, who rode one on their side of him. In this state they travelled without change except of horses, and passed all the muddy distance that lay between them and the capital. They travelled through the night, stopping an hour or 2 after daybreak and waiting until darkness fell the next evening. Daylight at last found them before the walls of Paris. The barrier was closed and strongly guarded when they rode up to it.
"Where are the papers of this prisoner?" demanded a man in authority. Naturally struck by the disagreeable word, Charles Darnay requested the speaker to take notice that he was a free traveller and French citizen in charge of an escort which the disturbed state of the country had obliged him to take and which he had paid for.
"Where?" repeated the same man without taking any notice of him whatever.
are the papers of this prisoner?" One of the red-cap patriots who had escorted him had them in his cap and showed them, casting his eyes over Gabel's letter. The same person in authority showed surprise and looked at Darnay with close attention. He left them without saying a word and went into the guardhouse while they sat on their horses outside the gate. When he had sat for about half an hour, Darnay found himself facing the same man in authority who asked him to get off his horse. He took him into a guardroom smelling of cheap wine and tobacco, where some soldiers and patriots asleep and awake were standing and lying about. Some registers were lying open on a desk, and an officer presided over these. "Citizen Duvarge," said he to the man who was with Darnay, and he took a piece of paper to write on. "Is this the immigrant Evermond?" "This is the man." "Your age, Evermond?" 37. "You are to be sent, Evermond, to the prison of La Force." "Just heaven!" exclaimed Darnay. "Under what law and for doing what?" The officer looked up from the piece of paper for a moment. "We have new laws, Evermond, since you were here." He said it with a hard smile and went on writing. "I beg you to observe that I have come here freely in response to that written appeal which you have in front of you, to help a fellow countryman. I demand no more than the opportunity to do so without delay. Is that not my right?" "Emigrants have no right, Evermond," was the reply. The officer wrote until he had finished and handed the note to Duvarge with the words, "In secret." Duvarge made a sign with a piece of paper to the prisoner that he must go with him. The prisoner obeyed, and a guard of 2 armed patriots followed them. "Is it you?" said Duvarge in a low voice, as they walked down the guardhouse steps and turned into Paris. "Who married the daughter of Dr. Manet, once a prisoner in the Bastille?" "Yes," replied Darnay, looking at him with surprise. "My name is Duvarge, and I keep a wine shop in the Saint Antoine district. Possibly you have heard of me. My wife came to your house to find her father." "Yes, in the name of that sharp, newly born female, La Guillotine. Why did you come to France?" "You heard me say why a minute ago." "Do you not believe it's the truth?" "A bad truth for you," said Duvarge with a worried look and looking straight ahead. "Will you answer me a single question?" "Perhaps it depends. You can say what it is." "In this prison that I am going to so unjustly, shall I have some free contact with the world outside?" "You will see. I am not to be buried there, prejudged, and without any means of presenting my case." "You will see, but what then? Other people have been similarly buried in worse prisons before you." "But never by me, Citizen Duvarge." Duvarge glanced darkly at him by way of answer and walked on in a steady silence. In silence they arrived at the prison of La Force. A man with a fat face opened the strong gate, and Duvarge said, "The emigrant Evermond in secret?" "What the devil! How many more of them?" exclaimed the man with the fat face. Duvarge paid no attention to the exclamation and went away with the 2 fellow patriots. "What the devil, I say again!" exclaimed the jailer. "How many more? Come with me, emigrant." They went through the darkness of the prison, along corridors and staircases with many doors banging and locking behind them, until they came to a door with iron bars. It opened onto a stone staircase leading upwards. When they had climbed 40 steps, the prisoner counted them. The jailer opened a low black door, and they went into a small prison cell. It was cold and wet, but not dark. "Yours," said the jailer. Why am I in a cell on my own? How do I know I can buy pen, ink, and paper? Those aren't my orders. You will be visited and can ask then. At present you may buy your food and nothing more. There were in the cell a chair, a table, and a straw bed. The jailer inspected these objects before going out.